What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Cod I Like. Today I'll be reading When at First You Don't Succeed by ElliottGreen333 on Wattpad. This is a part 2 to Losing Control, so if you haven't seen that book, I really recommend you do so before listening to this one. Before we get into it, I want to thank you all for 400 subscribers. Very big number. On with the video. 9. Virgil. As Remus's mace swung down, I held my hands over my head, hoping to protect myself, but nothing ever happened. I looked down at my hands, confused. Then I looked at Remus. He was laughing hysterically, gasping for air while dropping his mace and wrapping his arms around himself. Wait, I could hear Remus laughing, and I could see him too? What's happening? Hello, Virgil. A deep and smooth voice came from behind me. I turned around and was greeted by the same sight I kept seeing in my nightmares, but this didn't feel like a nightmare. This was real. It's good to finally meet you. You may call me Wrath, he said, sticking his pale hand out for a shake. I reluctantly took his hand, shaking it lightly. He seemed amused. Well, I'm glad someone taught him manners, he said to Remus. That was mainly Deceit's doing. I don't know how to cook a live mice without burning it. I shuddered at the memory. Wrath gestured to a wooden table and chairs, which I fairly certain wasn't there before. My feet were glued onto the floor, but Remus kicked my buckled knees, making me stumble forward. I took the same cue to follow Wrath to the table. Wrath sat across from me, and Remus took a seat to my right. Wrath smiled unnaturally, putting his hands under his chin, staring at me. I shifted in my seat. Why was he looking at me like that? I felt sick. I'm sure you're confused to why you're here, aren't you, Virgil? Wrath purred, his eyes still locked on me. Remus looked back and forth between me and Wrath before growing bored and deciding to have some fun. He lifted his thumb and index finger up, his tips pinned together. His hand began to glow green, and so did my lips. Ow, I'm so confused, Wrath. Remus giggled, puppeting my lips while making funny mouth noises. Wrath looked far from amused. Remus put his fingers down, and glow left my lips. Why don't you go check in on Deceit? Wrath suggested. Without another word, Remus stood up and walked out of the dark mind palace. I knew that Remus and Deceit were scared of Wrath, but not this much. Anyway, Wrath continued, whenever we saw you here, you weren't really here. It was a dream. A vision, if you will. All we knew is if we messed with you here, your body will receive the pain. When Remus hit you over the head, you were no longer as a dream form. You are stuck here until your body wakes up from being knocked out. I kind of stopped listening to Wrath. Instead, I thought of Roman. Can't imagine him having to watch my body after Remus hit me. I miss him. I miss Roman so much. Tears started to flow down my face. Wrath chuckled slightly, reaching out and putting his hand under my chin. His eyes glowed. I could feel him inside my head. What the hell is he doing? He let go of my chin and began to pant. I don't even know I was holding my breath the whole time. Thinking about Roman, aren't we? Wrath cooed. I sniffed, and he laughed again. A big, deep laugh. Nothing is safe from me, Virgil. I can see inside your mind. I froze and shuddered. I don't even like people being in my room, let alone swimming through my black thoughts. Something even I hated doing. Why do you think Roman loves you? Wrath asked after a long silence. I didn't respond to him. His face grew angry. Don't you think it's because of your sick thoughts or your twisted abilities to make Thomas panic to the point of passing out? Wrath was now yelling. I was shaking in my chair, gripping the bottom of my seat. I couldn't move even if I tried. I was so frozen in fear. Tears streamed faster down my face like waterfalls. If you ask me, I don't know what he sees in you. Me neither, I whispered. Wrath sucked in a breath. Well, since I read your mind, I should let you inside of mine. He paused. We're planning something big, Virgil. See, Remus and I. Seeing as they failed to take over Thomas the last time, I had to step in and pull the strings, if you will. Wrath's voice was deep like Deceit's, but his words had the effect of Remus. It was weird. But this time, Virgil, I don't want to take over you too. I want you to help us. He stuck out his hand, and I eyed it, very confused. Why would I do that? I said sternly. Wrath's face dropped. Think about what I said, Virgil. They hate you. Patton hates you. Logan hates you. Roman hates you. He laughed at the last one. If they cared for you, why did they let you to the dreamscape? Because they knew you'd get stuck here with me, maybe? And if you were to be stuck here with me, you would stay here and never wake up? Maybe. They'd hope you die in your dream, and they could watch. Stop! I screamed, covering my ears. I couldn't take this anymore. The wind fell through my hair, and I noticed Wrath pushed my chair back and I had hit the floor. I stood up, Wrath's hands glowing with fire. I don't get it, he shouted, throwing a fireball which hit me in the arm. I yelled out of pain, but kept backing away from a slowly approaching Wrath. Why are you the chosen one to be a light side? Another fireball hit my leg. Anxiety gets you nothing in life except for questioning looks and a therapist. Another fireball hit my stomach. Wrath gets you everything you could ever want by pushing away the people that corrupt you and stop you from your goals. Wrath grabbed my neck, lifting me up, choking me. My words, anxiety. Things will start fading away for you. First friends, then control, then Thomas. Wrath threw me on the ground and my vision was white. I heard footsteps walk further and further away until, through my closed eyes, I could see some light. Part 10. Logan. Virgil finally started to stir after about 15 minutes of me sitting with Roman, trying to calm him down. It was hard enough when Virgil's body started to twitch and flinch violently. I could imagine what was going through Roman's head right now. The amount of fear and concern with a mix of rage towards Wrath and the others. It's not a healthy mindset, but I don't think he cares right now. Virgil! Roman said, running his hands through Virgil's thin hair. Virgil, wake up! Roman was nervously biting his lip, almost as if he didn't think Virgil was truly about to wake up. Soon enough, however, he opened his eyes and looked at me, then up at Roman, eyes full of confusion and sleep. Roman's smile could barely fit on his face as he wrapped Virgil in a tight hug. I was so worried. Me too, Virgil struggled to say. When Roman let go of him, though, he seemed to be in pain. I was going to comment about it, and Roman didn't seem to notice and kept talking. What happened in there? I was so worried, Roman said, to which Virgil swallowed hard. His hands were shaking in his lap. His mouth was trying to split out words, but nothing was coming. He grabbed out Roman's sash and began to cry. I could see his eyeshadow peeling down along his rivers of tears. Roman engulfed Virgil in another hug while Virgil continued to cry. I felt a couple tears pricking my eyes too, but stood up before the other two could see. I walked back over to the control panel to investigate the damage. My eyes widened, seeing the panel fully destroyed and burnt. I pressed a couple buttons that were lifeless. Nothing happened. The screen that displayed the dreams was completely shattered, wires coming out from the frame. This is going to take weeks to repair, I thought to myself. I rubbed my chin with my hand, deeply thinking about the past hour and a half. Wrath has returned. Great. Just great, I sighed. The last time we saw him here was when Thomas was in the 3rd grade. All his temper tantrums were being behind him at that point in his life. I still remember Wrath. He and Patton hated each other. And I mean it when I say Patton hated him. They were always butting heads and making each other angry. They knew how to push each other's buttons so well, it was almost scary. Who's Wrath? Virgil asked meekly, breaking me from my thoughts. Walked back over to the two sides and kneeled over to Virgil. Wrath wasn't around for that long, I explained. He faded when Thomas was in 3rd grade, or so we thought. He was mean and cruel. He knew how to get under your skin and drive you away from your friends and family, Roman added. And that almost happened to Thomas until we were able to stop him. I nodded, remembering the event. It was the first time I've heard Patton yell at anyone. That got me thinking. I looked to my left and right before looking at Roman. Where is Patton? Roman looked around too, returning my confused look. He shrugged, but turned his attention back to Virgil, and he started coughing. He put his hand on Virgil's arm, and Virgil yelled out in pain as a response. Roman and I exchanged looks before Roman pulled Virgil's sleeves up and saw a dark red circular burn on his upper arm where Roman had touched. Virgil just looked as shocked as we did, staring down at it. Virgil, what happened? Roman questioned. Rev, Virgil answered, crying some more. Roman huffed, anger in his throat. I'll go get the first aid kit, I said. Roman nodded, and I stood up. I began walking back towards the light Mind Palace door before I finally added, and find Patton. I gripped the doorknob tightly, pulling the door open and slipping inside. I shut the door behind me quietly and quickly, just wanting to find Patton and get the first aid kit. I ran downstairs to the kitchen, digging under the sink for the first aid kit. I couldn't find it, and I was starting to get antsy. I ran to the guest bathroom and dug around in the medicine cabinet. I still couldn't find it, but I found some pain relief pills and some cream to help the burns. I put them in my pocket and took a breath. Now, to find Patton. I ran to his room and knocked on his door. Patton? I sighed. If you don't come back because I scared you, I humbly apologize. I waited in a thickening silence. I pressed my ear against the door, wanting to hear anything in return, but was still greeted by silence. I'm coming in, I said. I twisted the knob and opened the door with a loud creak. I was not ready for what I saw next. Patton had dry blood running from his nose, and his shirt was torn in many pieces. He was lying on his bed, still stiff as a board. His eyes were shut, and his face was limp. Patton! I screamed. I sat on my knees next to him and grabbed his limp hands as tears fell down my face. Patton, I mumbled. I wiped my tears, but they just kept coming out. I put my head in hands and cried. Who did this to you? I mumbled it to Patton. I felt something in Patton's hands. Opening his hand, I looked inside. It was a crumpled piece of paper. I took it from his head and read the note. It read in small, quickly written handwriting. Help. 11. Roman. Logan stood up, leaving to get the first aid kit and, knowing him, find Patton. Virgil started shaking in my lap, tears still falling down his face. I rubbed his hair softly, watching him try to calm down. It's okay, Virgil, darling. You're okay now. Wrath can't hurt you anymore, I said quietly. He... Virgil started, looking up at me. I was looking deeply into his almost black eyes. I've never seen him so scared, yet so happy to be back in my arms. He was planning something big. Virgil's voice shook with nerves as he swallowed. Planning something? What could that mean? Wrath hasn't been back in such a long time. Does he still remember what happened? Is that why he's angry? Well, angrier than normal? Virgil let a small whimper, which snapped me away from my thoughts. I realized my hand had accidentally slid down onto the burn mark on Virgil's arm. I quickly moved my hand off of it. Sorry, Virg, I didn't mean to, I said quietly. I know, he replied, his eyes dripping and his breathing starting to slow. I smiled sweetly, taking my arms underneath his legs and back, lifting into the aired bridal style. He looked at me sleepily, before he kind of looked around. Where's Logan and Patton? I kissed his precious forehead. I'll find them back in the Mind Palace, but first you need sleep. Virgil seemed to know he couldn't argue with me, as he weakly nodded, setting his head against my chest, slowly nodding off. I smiled softly again and started to walk back towards the Mind Palace. My mind was trying to figure out why Logan didn't come back. He knew the damage of the situation. He couldn't have forgotten, so what was going on? I could see another door in the distance, just now walking past the bench that Remus destroyed. It filled me with anger just looking at it, but also didn't have the heart to get rid of it. It's kind of like getting rid of a bit of me in Remus's history. I sighed and reached out to my palace's door, opening it quietly and shutting it softly, not wanting to wake a peacefully sleeping Virgil. I took small steps towards his room, opening the door with a creak. The room looked well, which was good. Then Virgil was okay as well. I walked inside and set him gently down on his bed. I put some blankets over him, which he grabbed onto and began to cuddle with. I felt like Patton, wanting badly to take a picture, but also wanting to respect my boyfriend's privacy. Speaking of Patton, where could he be? I stepped out of Virgil's room and left the door open a small crack, just in case he wakes up. Both Logan and Patton's doors were shut. Odd. I just walked over to Logan's door and stood in front of it. I don't know why, but I've been always afraid to knock on Logan's door. Logan is intimidating, and not very vocal when it comes to his emotions. Maybe because we're opposites in many ways. Whenever the reason, I pushed it past me to knock on the door. Logan, it's Roman. I just wanted to know why you didn't... Thomas, what the hell? I was cut off by sounds of the control room playing audio from Thomas's current interactions. Maybe that's where they are. With Thomas, or at the very least in the control room. I ran to the hall and carefully ran down the stairs, while Pat and Logan weren't there. I could clearly see Thomas talking to some of his friends in his house. Thomas's friends was crying and Thomas was laughing? That couldn't be right, I said to myself, taking a step forward to the controls, starting to press buttons to control the outcome. This should work, I said, pressing the command button and turning my attention to the screen. Nothing happened. Thomas just continued to laugh and make fun of his friend. That's not the command I ordered. I frantically started to input a new command, trying to think of anything that could change what would happen right now. I pressed the command button again. This time, noticed something came onto the screen. I read carefully. Please note, the mortality function is no longer active. The morality function? Thomas's sense of right and wrong? Not active? That could only mean Patton. Seeing now that my command for Thomas to help his friend wasn't going to work, I did the next best thing I could think of. Pressing a few more buttons, I hit the command to ram back upstairs, hearing Thomas' voice in the distance. Did you like that? I was practicing a monologue. You didn't think I was actually being mean to you, do you? I stopped in front of Patton's door, hands sweaty and heart pounding. I knocked on the door. Patton? I asked intensely. Roman? Came an uneven voice from Logan. My eyes widened a little in shock. I opened the door and gasped, putting my hand over my mouth quickly afterward. Logan had crumpled on the ground, holding a limp Patton's hand. The room's walls were faded blue, and his posters were slowly dropping from the peeling walls. Logan looked like he'd been crying for hours, even though it's only been 20 minutes. Logan sniffled and looked at me. Where's Virgil? He's sleeping in his room, but that's not the matter at hand. I slid down next to Logan, putting my hand on his shoulder. What happened? I don't know. I got a first aid kit and was looking for Patton. I didn't think I'd find him like this. Logan muffled another quick sob before his head jerked up if someone clicked in his head. Clearly, his throat was strained, his tie, and was cleaning off his glasses. He handed me the first aid kit and sniffly stood up. He put his hands neatly away behind his back and walked out of the room. I followed behind him, watching him walk to his room. Logan, where are you going? To my room, Creativity. I need to get some work done. And with that, he slammed the door. I clutched my first aid kit in his hands, shivering at the name he called me. Creativity. Part 12. Virgil. I heard a door open and then shut, followed by sounds of laughter. I was in another nightmare. I could only hear them this time. The laughter obviously belonged to Deceit and Remus. Remus's laughter was maniacal, like what I can imagine a serial killer's laugh would be, while Deceit's was low and booming. The laughter died down, and Rat's voice filled my ears. I assume it went well. Oh, it did, Remus said, continuing to laugh. You should have seen the look on Patton's face. He was so scared. But the plan went smoothly, Deceit added. Good, Wrath answered. Patton? What did they do to Patton? My mind flooded with answers. I was cut off when the talking continued. How was your date with Virgil? Remus chuckled with a low growl, and Wrath could be heard. Wrath took a deep breath. It was wonderful. I scared him shitless. I doubt he'll be meddling in our business again. My heart was beating in my ears. The silence was killing me. How about it to Virgil? Wrath called out. I gasped but covered my mouth. My blood went cold. The darkness of the nightmare started fading and began to swim with light. I woke up in my bathroom light on Roman and standing inside, messing with the first aid kit. I couldn't see what he was doing, but he was totally zoned out. I knew that look. Roman? I called out with a scratchy voice. He looked over with wide eyes before he realized it was me. Oh, sorry, Virgil. I hope I didn't scare you, he said, making careful steps out of the bathroom. I could see he was now wrapping some gauze back around its cardboard tube to be put away later. I tried my best to aid your arm. Is it feeling any better? I was slightly confused, but looked down at my arm to see gauze wrapped around it, covering my burn. Despite Roman no longer zoned out, Roman still looked like his mind was somewhere else. Roman? I asked nervously. What happened to Patton? He gave me a puzzled look, slowly inching towards my bed and sitting next to me. How did you know about Patton? You haven't seen him, Roman protested. I had another nightmare. Deceit, Remus, and Wrath talking about how their plan went smoothly with Patton. Roman looked surprised, but he took a shaky breath and held out his hand to me. Would you like to go see Patton? He asked. I nodded and put my hand on his. He pulled my feet and guided me out of my room. The hallway seemed darker and less lively. That's not a good sign. Roman twisted Patton's doorknob and led me inside. I gasped at the sight of Patton in his room. The walls were almost white rather than light blue, and Patton himself looked like a mess. I sat down next to him on the bed, watching his chest rise and fall slowly and unbeat. He's been like this the past couple hours, Roman explained. Where's Lo? I asked, turning to Roman. Roman just shrugged, so I turned back to Patton. His dry, bloody nose caught my attention first as my eyes wandered from his head to his shoes, looking at the damage. I stopped again at the neck. While his neck was bruised, there was something else I noticed. I stood up to get closer. Look, and Roman did as well. My hands were clammy as I rubbed the finger on two small dots, not far apart from each other on Patton's neck. What is that? Roman inquired. I looked back at him with tears in my eyes. Snake bites. Deceit bit him? Roman questioned. I brushed small tears on my face and nodded. What do we do? I don't know, I stuttered. Depending on the command Deceit gave him, the trigger to wake him up could be different, I explained. Roman nodded. His head began to pace from left to right. Well, what does Deceit want with Patton? He asked. That's the thing. It's not what Deceit wants with Patton. I paused. It's what Wrath wants with Patton. Deceit and Remus are taking orders from Wrath now. I chugged a lump in my throat, with the lip queering and tears spilling from my eyes. Roman took a step closer to me and wrapped me in a hug. I cried into his arm while I was racking my brain about how I could fix Patton. I have to face it. I know the most about Deceit and his poisons. I should know how to fix him. I have to fix this. They expect me to fix this. I looked back over to Patton. I might be able to wake him up. Roman clapped his hands together, grabbing my forearms, bringing us to our feet. That's wonderful, Virgil. I'll go get Logan. He'll want to see this. Roman danced out of Patton's room, leaving me alone with Patton in my dark thoughts. I looked back at Patton and sighed. I hope this works. Roman came back in, grabbing Logan behind him. Logan looked awful. His tie was astray, his hair was a total mess. Logan stared at his glasses, giving me a death stare through the thick lenses. Greetings, anxiety. Creativity told me you've discussed a way to help morality, he said, motioning Patton. I cringed listening to Logan call us all by our real names. Logan is never like this when he shuts down his emotions so he could focus on other things. Obviously, Patton being in a coma-like state was tearing him apart internally. Yeah, I think I can, I said, messing with my hands. Logan nodded and took a step back. Roman did the same, and I positioned my body to face Patton. There were a lot of commands it could be, but if I had to guess... Morality, I said with a shaky voice, letting my tempest tongue lace the words. Rise! I motioned my hand upward and waiting anxiously. Logan and Roman were on the tips of their toes. My hands were shaking, and I swallowed my tempest tongue back down, and I looked over at Logan and Roman. It was clear. Patton was not waking up. Part 13. Virgil. I held my breath as Logan came to my side, taking a closer look at Patton. Anxiety. This is utterly useless, Logan stated. I bowed my head, Logan's eyes glaring right through me. Hey, give him some credit, Roman said, stepping closer to Logan. At least he tried. What have you been doing? Logan turned his body toward him, looking in the center of Roman's eyes. I have been researching what could possibly be wrong with morality. And if you excuse me, I'd like to take it back instead of playing pretend with you two. With that, Logan started to walk towards the door. Logan, wait, I said. Logan's hand was resting on the knob, but he turned around to the sound of his name. I took a couple steps closer to him. No offense to you, but I know how Deceit's poisons work more than you. Maybe we could work together in figuring out how to wake Patton. I rubbed my damp hands together. Logan's brows were looking up and down, growing angrier by the second. Logan took a step towards me, causing me to take a step back. We continued this little dance until I backed into a corner. I could see Roman frozen in place. I crouched down in the corner, wanting to seem small. Logan towered above me. His eyes were daggers, carving into my skin. I may not know much about Deceit's ways, but at least I was never a dark side like you. His words struck me. My whole body began to shake. Logan, what are you doing? Roman said from behind. You know I'm right, creativity, Logan said, wiping his head around to face Roman before turning back to me. And unless you want to deny me and stand up for yourself, which we know you can't do, you'll stay out of my way, and you won't fuck things up even more than you have. Stop it, Logan! Roman froze, causing me to flinch. My face was wet and shiny, blood dripping down from the lip I was biting. Roman approached Logan, putting his hands on his shoulders, trying to pull him away, but Logan was too robotic, almost knowing Roman's move ahead of time. Logan shoved Roman back and stumbled, crashing into Patton's desk. Roman! I hollered as the desk smashed under his weight. Logan turned back to me. I didn't see what happened next, but I was sure felt it. My cheeks stung, a shaky hand, and the hotness on my face. Logan turned on his heel and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I wiped the nose, pulling my legs to his chest, hiding my head between my knees. I couldn't believe it. I knew Logan would shut down his emotions, but I didn't know he'd be so ruthless. I heard a moan from Roman. He lifted his head up, rubbing his head with his hand. I looked up at the same time Roman looked at me. Oh my God, Roman said, scrambling to get off the desk. He crawled over to me, grabbing my hand, pulling me closer to him whilst I sobbed harder. I didn't mean to be useless. I stuttered. Roman held me tighter. Virgil. Roman rubbed calming circle around my back, making my sobs quieter. Don't listen to whatever Logan said. He's wrong. You know that. You tried to wake Patton up, and we'll try again when you're ready. Everything's going to be fine. Just calm down, baby. Roman's words were comforting against the blackened Virgil thoughts. Roman helped me to my feet, my knees slightly wobbly. Roman balanced me, opening the door for me to guiding me downstairs. We stopped at the bottom step, Roman letting me go. Stay here. I'll put on a movie, and we could calm down together, okay? I nodded, and watched Roman scurry off. I turned my attention to Control Center for Thomas, trying to see what was going on in his world. It seemed like he was sitting on the couch, crying. He was having a panic attack like I was. How could I not realize? I looked over my shoulder and saw Roman trying to choose a movie. I took this as my chance. I appeared in Roman's living room, walking slowly and quietly over to him. Thomas didn't notice when I sat down next to him. He was crying and shaking, hugging his pillow that was on the couch. Thomas? He looked at me with wide eyes that were scared. It's all right. It's me, Virgil. Thomas nodded. I noticed him clutch the pillow harder. It stung a little to know that he was scared of me right now, but I understood why. Thomas, can I touch you? Thomas nodded, so I wrapped my arms around him, giving him a gentle hug, which he leaned into. He sat in silence for a couple of moments before I heard Thomas clear his throat. Are you okay? Thomas asked me. I paused, but slowly nodded no. Something's wrong with Patton and Logan. Patton is in a coma or something, and Logan is so hurt because Patton is in a coma that Logan shut off all his emotions. Me and Roman just got in a fight with Logan. I paused, wiping away tears that were sliding down my face. Thomas held my hand as I sniffed. Logan pushed Roman and hit me. Thomas didn't make any noise, but it sounded like he was sorry. If anything, I swear I heard a little laugh out of him. I figured that him not having Patton around was starting to take effect. I sighed and closed my eyes, feeling sleep drag heavy body further into the couch. Thomas' chest was rising and falling evenly. He'd fallen asleep. I was right behind, feeling the light from the room fade away. Part 14, Episode 1, Roman. Couldn't believe Logan. Even though I was being sweet and comforting with Virgil right now, I was fuming. My face was bright red with anger. My hairs on the back of my neck were standing straight up with tension. What the frick was he even thinking? Get it, he's upset about Patton, but he has no right to yell at my boyfriend that he isn't doing anything about the problem. I don't even want to try to imagine what Virgil feels like right now. I know how fragile Virgil is, especially when it comes to his past. He was so broken after Logan called him useless. The word made me shudder. I left Virgil at the bottom of the stairs. He was shaking, but I knew he needed a second alone. I went sorting through all our Disney movies, trying to find one that me and Virgil could calm down to. I don't want Virgil to be alone right now, even though I'm sure he wants to be. As I was shuffling through the DVDs, I couldn't help but remember the movie night me and Virgil would have together. We stopped having those after Virgil made the deal with Deceit. Virgil never did give me a straight answer as of why he made the deal. Something about protecting us or something, but I feel there was more to it. I had Black Cauldron in one hand and Hunchback of Notre Dame in the other hand. Both were great films, both Virgil's favorite films. Both films we know by heart. Hey Virgil, which would you rather watch? I asked. He didn't answer. Virgil? I turned around, worry grasping at me a bit. When I noticed Virgil wasn't there, I bit my lip. I dropped the movies on the ground and ran upstairs, my brain thinking the worst, but my heart wanting to believe he was fine. I knocked on his door. Virgil? Baby? I called out. No answer. I was getting more worried. I ran my hands over my face, wiping tears around my face that I didn't know I was crying. I knocked again. Virgil, I'm not going to be mad. I just want to know you're okay. Still no answer. I finally opened the door. I don't usually like to intrude, but I was given not much of a choice. To my surprise, the room was still. There was no movement, no sounds, no Virgil. I breathed deeply in relief, leaning against the frame, to myself. He was safe, but where did he go? I mindlessly walked back upstairs, wondering where Virgil went off to so quickly. I jumped to the bottom step where I heard laughing coming from the control panel. I stepped, my head looking towards the panel. I saw Thomas sitting down to Virgil. Of course. Thomas had a panic attack along with Virgil. Without hesitation, I sunk down. I popped my head and moved closer to the couch, my heart fluttering when I saw Virgil asleep and an also sleeping Thomas. He geeked out momentarily. Geez, when did I become Patton? Anyway, I grabbed a nearby blanket and placed it neatly on both of them, watching them cuddle up into it. I decided to stay in the living room with my sleeping host and his anxiety. I wanted to be here in case Virgil has another nightmare, but also I didn't want to see Logan right now. Knowing me and my feelings towards Logan right now, I'd probably snap his neck. But I'm not going to do that, so we're fine. I sat on the other end of the couch and pulled out my phone. I started scrolling through my Instagram, looking at Thomas's fan art and edits. I smiled to myself, enjoying the quiet of the room and the sudden break from crazy reality. I heard Virgil moaning while shuffling the blanket around him. I sprang up from the couch, down in front of him. I could see the discomfort in his face. He was definitely having another nightmare. I put my hand on top of his. "It's okay, Virgil. I'm right here," I soothed. He only seemed to grow more uncomfortable when he squeezed my hand in return. Logan," he mumbled, still in a deep sleep. "It's okay, he's not here." I brushed the bangs out of his face, trying to calm the squirmy body down. No, came a quiet reply from his lips. "Lo, help." Then Virgil went quiet. "Virgil? Virgil!" I shook his shoulders, but when I heard soft snores, I knew he was gone again. I looked down on the floor, then back at Virgil. What was going on that I couldn't understand? I waited a couple more seconds to make sure Virgil was truly gone back to sleep. I stood up and quickly walked upstairs. The hallway was quiet and dark. It gave me chills, but I had to check on Logan. As much as I didn't want to see his face right now, I knew I'd feel bad if I didn't help him at the end of the day. I walked past my room, the raw red door, then patterns, the bright blues turned into a pale white due to Patton's condition. Past Virgil's door, a room I've been so many times. Finally, Logan's dark blue door. I stood my body in front of the door. Its energy was lower than normal. That was my first warning. I knocked on the door, my hand growing unsure if I really wanted to check on Logan. "Logan?" I said to the wooden door. "Not that I care all too much right now, but Virgil is worried about you." A second passed, then another second. Before I knew it, I had stood in front of the door for a full minute. That was the second warning. I heard no noises. I heard no response. All I heard was my heart beating heavily in my ears. I couldn't take that. "Logan, I am coming inside." I twisted the knob gently, hoping Thomas's logic would come to the door, hoping anything other than nothing would happen. But then I noticed nothing had happened, and I opened the door. I got the last warning. Logan was lying stiff on his bed, a big bruise on his head, which had been oozing with dried blood. His tie was astray, and his glasses were on his face. What struck me the most was his eyes were closed, and then I realized whatever happened to Patton happened to Logan. 14. Episode 2, Deceit. Logan's door slammed loudly and footsteps were thumping all around the room. Me, Remus, and Wrath were watching Logan from the comfort of the Dark Mind Palace, a screen which Logan's room was playing in front of us. It was time to act on the next phase of our plan. Remus was giggling happily, watching Logan slowly lose his mind as we replayed the situation in his head. Wrath quieted Remus as we continued to watch. Logan sat at his bed, tugging violently at his hair, letting go for short breaks before tugging again. "What the hell is wrong with me?" he yelled at himself. I smirked. "A lot of things, Logan," I thought to myself. He got up and started pacing around the room. I could practically see the gears in his head cranking, as his pacing grew quicker. Finally, he planted his feet in front of the bookshelf that held together with duct tape. He carefully grabbed the book and flipped through the pages. "Maybe some simple memory warping will make this disappear," he spoke. Wrath laughed a wicked laugh, making me and Remus jump. Neither Remus and I had to say it. We knew we were both terrified of Wrath. But what could we do about it? He's throw us into limbo to be forgotten if we didn't cooperate. Memory wiping. That didn't work for me. What makes you think it'll work for any of them? Wrath questioned. His face grew closer to the screen. Who knew logic could be so stupid? He leaned back and faced me. Your turn. Get in there. We'll be behind you shortly. I nodded to Wrath and looked at Remus. Good luck, Remus said. I smiled at Remus before closing my eyes, opening them soon after in Logan's bedroom. Logan wasn't looking at me. He was still nose deep into his book. I put my fingers together and slithered closer to him. I must say, Logic. I spat his name, making a flinch of panic as he turned around to see my wide-fanged smirk. That was devilish. What you did to Virgil and Roman. Shut up, he stared back at me. I didn't mean it. Any of it. I just didn't want to feel the pain of losing Patton anymore. I just wanted to shut down. He paused and sighed. I didn't think this would happen in return. I wiped a few stray tears on my cheeks. I chuckled a little pity laugh. Oh, Logan, sometimes that's the way the shoe fits. Question is it better now this way? I circled Logan. He's the prey. What do you mean? I just mean, they're out of your hair. They don't want to talk to you right now. Hell, they barely stand to look at you. Think about this, Logan. All the time in the world to study and forget about your friends. Logan squirmed uncomfortably. But I like having friends. Studying isn't everything. If Thomas needs friends to survive, then I do too. He hollered, trying his best to cover his ears. He sunk to the ground, pulling his knees to his chest. I just want Patton back. I stood over him, his glossy eyes staring into mine. I smirked. Why don't you join him? Logan looked confused for a second, but his confusion didn't last long. I extended my foot, connecting it to his forehead. His head was smashing against the wall, enough to leave a crack. His eyes became unfocused, shaking his head to stop the spinning. I grabbed his collar and lifted him into the air, pushing him behind me where Remus popped up again, catching him. Logan looked in shock to see Remus's grin. He giggled, throwing Logan's head down to the desk, making his temple bruised and bleeding. Finally, Remus threw Logan limply back to me. Logan was pretty much fully knocked out, but I worried my magic anyway. Sinking my fangs deep into his neck, he made no effort to fight back. No squirms of pain. It kind of made me sad. Wrath appeared as I removed my fangs from his neck. I let Logan fall into Wrath's arms. Wrath chuckled, scanning Logan's body. Good work, boys. He then carried Logan's body and placed him carefully on the bed, positioning him like he did with Patton. Last but not least, Wrath placed in his hands Logan's heart, which became a glow dark blue. I watched, shaking slightly as Wrath drained Logan of his aura. The room became dull. Wrath wiped his head around, and his left eye, which was previously only light blue, was now also half dark blue. The chains of his wrists were also thinner than he could break them with. Yet, Wrath extended his hand and watched blue hue emerge from it. 2 down, 1 to go. Me and Remus nodded. However, we froze. There was a knock that came on the door. Logan? Came a voice. Roman, Remus whispered. Not that I care all that much right now, but Virgil is worried about you. Wrath's eyes went wide. Virgil was here in a vision and you fuckfaces didn't notice. He whisper-shouted at us. Even though it was just a whisper, me and Remus flinched. Wrath was just the first to sink out, followed by Remus, but I stayed. A part of me wanted to see how this would turn out. I quickly ducked into the bathroom, not fully closing the door as I watched and listened in. Logan, I'm coming inside, Roman said through the door. I heard the door open and a creaking moan, but I stopped as I saw Roman seeing Logan. Roman gasped, looking back and forth between Logan and back down the hall. Fear was in his eyes to choose to run back upstairs. Virgil! Virgil, wake up! Roman shouted. I stood up, letting blood flow back to my legs. Maybe I missed my chance. Maybe I'll never get a chance. Maybe that was my only shot. I broke from my thoughts and felt a grab my leg and pull me down back home. Part 15. Roman. Virgil, wake up! I hollered as I made frantic steps towards the stairway. My heart was going faster than my mind could keep up with. Virgil was right. Logan was in trouble. How could I have let this happen? I should have known. We left Patton alone, and then we found him in a coma or whatever. Of course, leaving Logan alone would do the same thing. If Wrath told Virgil the truth about anything, the truth was, he was indeed planning something big. I jumped down the final couple steps, my eyes looking in the living room's general area. I could see Virgil had woken up, but by his mentions of his broken breathing pattern, I could tell that he was freaking out. I rushed over to him, grabbing his hand while watching his eyes, glazed in fear, and took a deep breath. Once he realized who I was, his arms coiled around, squeezing me in his embrace. I hugged him back gently and sobbed into my chest. They got Logan, he muffled through my shirt. I know, baby, I mumbled, rubbing the back of my head. I looked down at my emo prints, glazing his skin, bleeding eyeshadow streaming down his face. He lifted his face and looked at me again. Wrath, he's gonna get you too, he stammered. I've never seen him like this before. Sure, I've seen him scared, but never seen him so confident that he was scared of what was really going to come true. I won't let them, Virgil. They may have gotten Logan and Patton, but they're not going to get me, okay? Virgil nodded, even though I tried to sound confident in what I was saying. I wasn't so sure if that was the whole truth. I heard more footsteps coming down the stairs. Turning my head, I saw Thomas casually walking into the kitchen. I don't know why he was in the kitchen. He already appears to be eating something. He turned around looking shocked to see me. Roman, what's up? Thomas smirked. What's up? What's up? I'll tell you what's up. What's up, Thomas? Your life is falling apart, and the two sides are gone. You're mentally unstable. That's what I would have said to Thomas if I hadn't noticed that he was eating. In his hands was a copy of a dictionary with chunks of pages missing. As Thomas was tearing pages apart and swallowing them, I shuddered. Thomas, why in all things gold are you eating a dictionary? I questioned. He looked down at the dictionary and forgot he was eating it. He snorted before taking a breath to answer. Oh well, I wanted to learn some new words to input into my scripts, so I thought the simplest way to learn those words was by eating a book full of words, he said, shaking the book. He laughed again. I don't think I've ever said this before, but Logan is the most important side. Thomas needs his logic back. Now. I stood up and walked closer to the kitchen, Virgil keeping a close eye on me to make sure I wouldn't vanish. It is clear that Logan being shut down is having a really bad effect on you, I stated blankly. What? What happened to Logan? Thomas asked. That's not important right now, I said, extending my hand. Give me the dictionary. Thomas looked at my hands as if they were on fire. He gently set the book in my hand, which I then threw behind me. Now, Thomas, you're going to have to forgive me for what I'm about to do to you. But Virgil's my main concern at this point, and I can't be trying to babysit you at the same time I'm trying to protect him. Thomas eyed me up and down before asking, What am I going to forgive you for? This, I said, tapping my fingers, and Thomas immediately fell to the ground in a peaceful, dream-filled sleep. I brushed my hands on his pants and turned around to Virgil. He was looking at me, very wide-eyed and afraid. I bit my lip, lifted my arm slowly, and approached the couch that Virgil sat upon. Virgil, I didn't mean to scare you, but what I said was true. You are my main concern. I sat down next to him, and he shifted away from me. I knew my eyes were glowing, which hurt, but Virgil was too scared. I really shouldn't have done that in front of Virgil. I know why you did that, but I'm just really afraid right now. My arm carried over to his shoulder protectively while he was fiddling with his hoodie strings. His legs were up on my chest and his hood was covered his head. He was whispering to himself quietly, but before I went to ignore it. He was in his own world now. Maybe that was the safest place for him right now. For him to be away from here. I said again, feeling fear loom inside of me. I was kind of afraid to go back to sleep or do anything right now. The house was quiet, which was never good. I don't think I like it quiet. You could hear ice machines in the fridge drop new ice cubes into a little bucket inside of it. You could hear old boards of the house shift slightly every time the wind blows harshly. Not to mention I could hear my own thoughts, clearer than I've ever have in a long time. So many great ideas, all for another day. I looked back over at Virgil, who was also looking at me. I blushed and mumbled a sorry. I only smiled and started brushing his hair with my fingers. I swear I've heard him purr. I yawned deeply, making him do the same. I don't want to sleep anymore, he whimpered, grabbing his head. Every time I do, I wake up in so much pain. I kissed his temple and wrapped his hand in mine. I glanced at the door in a shine, and something caught my eye. I smiled at the 2 DVDs on the ground. How about we watch some movies instead? Okay, everyone, that is it for today's video of Wattpad Read Alouds. If you enjoyed, then good for you. I don't know anymore. I do have social media links down below if you want to do any of that. From TikTok to Tumblr, I do it all, except I never go on Tumblr because it's confusing and scary. But it is there and it exists. So, I guess this is the end. See you next week, and do your best.